So good morning everyone. We're going to talk about this session Stop and Think in Post-Structuralism and Deconstruction. Actually Stop and Think, the title seems like a funny one, but I told you many of the important factors regarding post-structuralism and deconstruction come under this title. Even certain definitions which we cannot avoid as part of learning. Okay, yes. So stop and think. I started talking about that. This is how to talk about the sentence given there. That is, there is nothing outside the text. There is nothing outside the text. How can you read that particular quote from of Grammatology, which is a text by Derrida? How can you read the text in and out of the context of deconstruction? It's very important to note down how you can deal with this particular quote or read the same quote in and out of the context of deconstruction. And I gave you the examples, certain textual examples where you have the text and you read it as such. That is, we have a constructed reading or an established reading where you do not challenge any of the established systems, any of the ideas that we already keep in mind. Just wait. Yeah. So how to deal with the same quote in and out of the context of deconstruction? That is, you take a text, you read the same thing without having any other thought on the characters. That is, if you have the idea in the established readings as a person to be real hero, person to be standing on the side of justice. So you do not try to read it in a different way. As structuralism says, you stick on to the language what is readily available without thinking twice about another possibility. So there is nothing outside the text. So that you read the text as it is given by others, or the interpretations you take for granted, the established interpretations you take for granted. Okay, but what is another possibility in the context of deconstruction? Two possibilities are that the same quote, same idea can be read out in two different ways. The situation is this. When you talk about that particular quote in the context of deconstruction, there is nothing outside the text, in the sense that you have all the elements required for the text to be deconstructed involved in itself, in its own context, in its own characteristics, in its own theme and subject matter. You don't have to bring an external element, another character, for the sake of bringing an entirely different reading from what you have been holding till date. So you can get a different, entirely different reading without having any change in character, subject matter, theme or anything, so that there is nothing outside the text. There is nothing needed from or needed outside the text. Every element that you require to deconstruct the text is already involved in that. You get the point? So the same thought from the part of Derrida in his text of Grammatology. You can see the text, the name of the text in italics. So this is a book length publication, definitely. And what you get there is nothing outside the text. And when it is told by Derrida, definitely he means that in the context of deconstruction. He doesn't mean that out of the context of deconstruction. He doesn't want to say that you read a text and there is nothing outside that. You read a text and you take the already given readings for granted. He and any other deconstructive critics do want, definitely they do want to go for an entirely different reading that has been not there till date. Okay, so I get a poem for you for reading. As a teacher, I get you an interpretation. But no chance or it's nothing particular that you have to stick on to that reading. You can have entirely different readings from the out of the text. Let's say kind of a reading that may struck you with wonder, only provided that you are willing to read line by line or in-depth reading without taking anything from outside. That is not needed. Taking something from outside is not needed. It's not necessary. You get the characters, you keep them intact, whatever and whichever they do, all those things remain without having any change. But what is happening there? The angle from which we look at the text does change. Okay, the angles from which we look at the text. That is, you look from the point of view of your own ideologies, understanding. Person number B looks at from another corner and he or she comes up with an entirely different reading for the same text. But every time, as per Derrida's view, there is nothing outside the text. Okay, that means every element for you to deconstruct the text is there already involved inside. Fine, that is all with the particular part. And out of the context to justify kind of extreme textualism. What I described right now is given there, that is out of the context to justify a kind of extreme textualism means justifying a kind of extreme textualism. What does it mean? Extreme textualism, that is, you are clinging on to the text. You do not want to challenge the established readings, so that you are happy with what is already given. A particular text talks about a person and his deeds to be very heroistic. All the years, all till date of deconstruction, for example, so that you take that textualism for granted and you do not search, you do not go in search of another meanings, another readings, that's all. Okay. And whereby it is held that all reality is linguistic, so that there can be no meaningful talk of a real world which exists without question outside language. What is that? All reality is linguistic. Who says that? We know who says that. It's structuralism. Structuralism only can say that every reality is linguistic. There is nothing beyond linguistic processing. No, I didn't move upward. Just keep the file intact. I will tell you when it is to move upward. Same page, 28 itself. 28 itself. See, that is underlined, just highlighted in, it's not actually highlighted because it's something connected with the structuralism, not something connected with the post-structuralism. So, the highlighting is not given that importance, that it's not important, but we have to know what is that in the out of the context of deconstruction. When you say something, reality is so linguistic, that means structuralist point of view, so that there can be no meaningful talk of a real world which exists without question outside language. We definitely know for sure it's an idea proposed by, never by post-structuralism but by structuralism. Okay, yes. And another highlighted point you can see, one actually put forward by Derrida is not this. It is becoming common today to deny that such a view is the one actually put forward by Derrida. Is it so? No. Derrida says that you take the text, you read it, but in a different, from a different angle. You don't have to add some other 5 or 6 characters to change the meanings and readings. I gave you the textual example. Even that movie I deconstructed, I told you the deconstruction at the climax of the movie. How we can do that? How can we do that? So, if you do not think in terms of, or if you do not concentrate upon the climax of the movie, that's very perfect in the mode of portraying or promoting women empowerment. A woman who's coming out successful at the end of the movie. That's all with it, if you read at it at surface level. But just think about it. And again, we never changed the characters. We never changed the situation for an entirely different meaning. To bring an entirely different reading, we didn't change the situation. How old are you? The movie is, even now it's the same. But you just think about the last sentence that a woman character utters, and there you get the point. It's entirely different from the way we thought about or way we think about. We can think about women empowerment if you talk about in the context of the reality of the picture. That's entirely different. Right? Yes. So that is the way. But you know for sure, we never change the movie, the theme, the climax, nothing, to go for such an entirely different thought on the movie. So that's a different reading. So that's what Derrida says. He says that there is nothing outside the text. No need for bringing elements outside from the text to deconstruct that. Okay? Yeah. So after that, it's about the textual details, but we have to go for next. But he stops to question his own method of interpreting this text, and hence the nature of all interpretation. What about the nature of all interpretations? Nature of all interpretations. Till date it is about clinging on to certain authors, their views, or whatever is existing as ideologies, the power structures. Power structures talk about the, see, if it is a patriarchal society, that is the power structure that is ruling. The ruling power structure is as such. So that what? We have the tendency to read that from that angle. So now it is possible that we have to think in terms of, it's possible that we can think in an entirely different manner. You can think on the from the viewpoint of a woman character or the suffering of the woman you highlight, so that the entire picture of the text does change. You come up with an entirely different reading. Okay. And he debates the concept of the supplement, a word which in French can also mean a replacement, in the sense that language replaces or stands in for a reality. Language stands in for a reality. What is that? Language just stands in for a reality. It doesn't mean that it's fixed. It is not fixed at all. We see that how gust can be unwelcome and how we can connect it back to its etymology. We saw that. Right. So this is the way. It's just about replacement or supplementing. A word can have different meanings. We always have the tendency to take only what we know at the surface plane. But this is about a task. Deconstruction is not very simple a task. Just one word or one phrase can change the entire reading of a textbook. Even a novel, you can change the entire reading, entire interpretation, just by looking at the etymology or a phrase which you interpret in a different way, you get a different picture of the same. So this is what you mean by replacement, supplement, and it stands in for a reality. It stands in for a reality. It just stands in, means another person can stand in there. One another can substitute the position next time. That means a reading of yours, a reading of mine, a reading of some other students. That's all. It's possible. Get the idea? Yes. And this idea is outlined in the immediately preceding pages of grammatology. But what exactly is the nature of the standing in, since the person writing is inscribed in a determined textual system? But every time we have the constraint of any person, if it is me or if it is you, if it is another persons, we all stand in some determined textual systems. We are worried about new readings. We are worried about bringing new readings. Teacher gives you a reading for a text, a reading for a poem, and you feel that this is not that right. It can have another new reading. But as a student, you feel that, oh, if I tell this, if I declare, if I expose this, I may be criticized. This is the problem of every new reader or every reader who wants to bring something new. Get the idea? Yes. So this is the way the replacement or the replaces. You know that you are standing in for a reality, another realities can be there for the same thing. That's why I always talk about 9 and 6 from read out from 9, that script read out from two angles. If I write 6 from my side, you read it at the end, the next point at the opposite side and read it to be 9. I cannot challenge your reading. It's just a symbolic representation of every possibility in that sense. Okay. Yes. So exactly is the nature of the standing in the person writing is inscribed in a determined textual system. So determined, what is already determined, and you're worried about challenging that. Something is determined. By whom? By the power structures. By the power structures. So that you are worried about. Okay, so that is the first point out of the how to talk about that out of the context of deconstruction and in the context of deconstruction. And which is to say that we all inherit language as a ready-made system. That is another difficulty. We all inherit language as a ready-made system, which with its own history, philosophy, and so on already built in. The same page, so sorry, 30th page, page number 30. Yeah. In this sense, one might argue that we don't express ourselves in words, merely some aspect of language. Isn't so? We don't express ourselves in words. I tell a word, I utter a word, I express, and I expect that to be interpreted by others in the way I think. But can you stick on to, or can you be obstinate? Can you make sure that others will take that in the same sense? Some other persons who are listening to your speech may know entirely different meanings for this particular words or the words that you utter, so that the reading can be entirely different. That can be entirely, the readings, the meanings they take can be entirely different. You cannot blame them, you cannot argue with them, because that is the freedom of the person. So what about this sentence? We don't express ourselves in words, merely some aspects of language. My aspects I express. Even the same sentence, same argument point, others take it in an entirely different way. That is another aspect of the same, and that is possible as well. The writer writes in a language and in a logic whose proper system, laws and life, his discourse by definition cannot dominate absolutely. The writer writes in a language and in a logic whose proper systems, laws and life, his discourse by definition cannot dominate absolutely. A person has a discourse of his or her own. I talk about my ideology. You talk about your ideology. So that is personal discourses. But you cannot say that. You use a language, you know the language, you are going to be the graduates in bachelors of English. I am a postgraduate in English. So we know the language, or we all are Malayalis. So we all know Malayalam, so we know this is our mother tongue. Even in that case, you cannot say that. That language and its logic, proper systems and laws, all that we inherit in a pure 100% manner. It's just about a surface level understanding. We talk about grammar, but how many aspects of grammar are there in every language system that even we didn't even have here. It's not even accessible to us, or we didn't have at least have heard about. We haven't have heard about. So this is the way the system, laws, life and discourse by definition cannot dominate absolutely. We cannot always, our discourse, our understanding, we cannot say that just by our qualification, just by our mastering a language or having even other degrees in the same language, we cannot say that our discourse defines the language. It's the reverse. We have maybe a person with a maximum qualification or a person who reads a lot may have more understanding of the language. That doesn't guarantee that he or she talks everything in the right way, or whatever he or she talks should be taken for granted. Even a mere child can talk about the entirely different plane of the entirely different reading for the same. Okay, yes. So he uses them only by letting himself, after a fashion and up to a point, be governed by the system. He uses them. What? The language and the rules, or the laws, the rules, everything, only by letting himself, after a fashion and up to a point. After a fashion and up to a point. Just after a fashion. Just think about your going after fashions. It's there. You may continue using that. Some people are there who are merely behind fashion. After once that is out of order, you are behind another thing. Sometimes we try with the dress and even food style in that way. But at the same way, it is told here, it's he uses them only by letting himself. You are ready to use that. 31, page number 31 itself. 31, yeah, he uses second paragraph. He uses them by only letting himself, after a fashion and up to a point, be governed by the system. The person is letting others to be governed by the system. Or the language, his system is governed by language. He uses a part of that, not the entire, he or she, whatever. And the reading must always aim at a certain relationship unperceived by the writer. That is the major idea of deconstruction. It's unperceived by the writer. You do not have any commitment that the writer, the person created the characters, the situations with that much effort, so I am liable to use that or to read that, clinging on to his or her mental, moral, ideological, social situation. Is it so? No. In that case, we cannot even read, we can read a few texts which the authors we are well acquainted with. History texts teach you, but there are a lot of writers whom the history texts do not even mention. They are upcoming writers with more talents maybe. But we cannot always be in search of their readings, their ideologies, their social and geographical, psychological conditions while creating the text. And we are not even liable to do that. But we think that, we mistake that what the writer thought to read the text in a different way. It's a disrespectful thing. That is the way we have been taught, or we have been familiarized. See, we have been taking the text in that way. That's why every time if you get a poem for interpretation, you have the tendency to start the interpretation by saying that or quoting the author. The poem, then the title, written by. How many of us can or could avoid such a practice till date? At least once or twice while writing an interpretation for a particular text. We cannot do that because we have the practice of quoting, thinking about what he or she might have meant there. It's not our duty to think back to them. We are now writers from centuries back. Remote centuries we know. How can we know the way they thought about in 17th century, 14th century, 16th century? How do we know? We do not know actually. But still we have the tendency to. And that's why The writer writes in a language and logic whose proper system, and that is how he uses them only by letting himself after a fashion and up to a point be governed by the system, and reading must always aim at a certain relationship. If you are reading a text, it can be unperceived by the writer. There is nothing wrong about that. It can be unperceived. What do you mean by unperceived? Perceiving means you expect that the writer see and you also view it in the same corner, from the same corner, same angle. But here it is something different between what he commands and what he does not command. That is another thing. Between what he commands and what he does not command. What is that? He commands something. You do not feel like changing that, because that strong the character, that strong the portrayal, majority of us feel like agreeing to. That is a commanding power of the author. Majority of the readers try to shake their heads, yes, in affirmation, yeah, that's right. But even in that case, there must be some 10% of readers who do not want to agree with that, who can bring entirely different reading. That is a skill. Reading interpretation is entirely different. It's very creative and really a creative activity. It's not as you read a newspaper and take the factual things for granted and go back. Close down the newspaper and wait for the next day news. No. Interpretation is entirely different. It's very really creative an activity, if you take it in the right sense. Otherwise, you cling on to the writer, you cling on to the already given interpretations. You do not want to take risk. It's again taking risk. I told you. Risk edukalalle. They're taking risk definitely. എല്ലാം തോന്നുന്നുണ്ടോ? നമ്മൾ 10 of your teachers get you an interpretation, other guides get you an interpretation, and it's very safe that you read that and you by heart that and you vomit that in your answer sheets, so that you're given 100 marks of percentage marks for that particular question. But you're not ready to stick on to that. You get an entirely different interpretation. You would like to go for entirely different interpretation. What about that? It's risk. It's taking risk. You are swimming against the strong current, right? So that is again risk. But what he commands and what he does not command. Sometimes we come across certain trolls of Shakespearean dramas. There Shakespeare says, "Oh, I didn't even mean that." Now we have feminist criticism. Now we have post-structuralism and deconstruction, post-colonial readings. While his writing then, no one thought in terms of that. Why all your female characters are very feeble, so you are a male chauvinist. Nowadays blames are there on Shakespeare for portraying such feeble women characters, or even the strong women characters coming down to the level of very fragile and obedient by the end of the plays. If it is now that particular director or the screenwriter of the play or movie must be criticized like anything. Now you just think about the movie Surarai Pottu, very recent one. I didn't watch the movie, but surface level readings say that it's a movie that shows the powerful woman character, and just to go and to see what's the critical reviews of the movie. So we also feel like thinking from that different angle, and that is the way this kind of altercation, the kind of arguments go in between the fans of a particular hero, so that they cannot tolerate that what the movie tries to portray, and on behalf of that it is getting maximum perfect views, so that all of a sudden a person or some persons come up with a different reading. It's not that empowerment, it's not that woman empowerment, it's that the theme is not that empowering. Get the point? So you have the problem with the this particular analysis, that is the already or majority, the analysis or the interpretation accepted by the majority should not be or may not be always the perfect one. The new readings also can have its own validity. Okay, so this is the way you have to think about this. Yeah. This relationship is not a certain quantitative distribution of shadow and light, of weakness or of force, but a signifying structure that critical reading should produce. This relationship, what relationship? What is perceived and unperceived. Just next page, that is 32. A signifying structure that critical reading should produce. That means this relationship between what the author, the writer perceived and what is unperceived by him, or what he commands directly and what he does not command. Certain spaces of a text are more open for interpretation. Sometimes you talk about open-ended movies. You think about that. Open-ended books are there. That's a post-structuralist technique. You do not fix a closing point there. You do not fix an absolute there. You don't have to fix an absolute. You are really happy about a closed, an open ending, so that you can read it in different ways. You can see the different angles of the same. Okay, so that is again what he commands and what he does not command, and this is a signifying structure that critical reading should produce. Critical reading should produce. That is again, we have to think about what is not commanded by the writer, what is not perceived by the writer, and we are not liable to cling on to what they mean. We are not liable to cling on to. Why should we? We are not at all committed to the writers. That's why the same post-structuralism, another critic talks about the death of the author. Already we have come across that. If not the physical death, but the role or duty is over. You stay back, you stay away from this. Now it's the birth of the reader. It's a corollary of the birth of the reader. So your freedom is entirely conferred upon you. The freedom for the reader, it's completely there. You can read, but provided that should be in a very logical in the sense, the reading should have something to do with the text. Otherwise it's about you talk about something in an out of it manner. Sometimes you talk about something in dreams which do not have any connection with the reality. So the text does have a particular system of its own. Any text, creative writings, whatever it may be, any kind of writings do have their own structure, maybe, but see, post-structuralism challenges even that. But of course, that one reading is there. If it is very logical, that is one reading for the text. Another person comes up with an entirely different reading, but still that has something to do with the same text. So that also becomes a valid reading. Fine. Yes. Then after that, 32 page number keep it there. Reading and interpretation then are not just reproducing what the writer thought and expressed in the text. Reading and interpretation are not just reproducing what the writer thought and expressed in the text. Definitely another way of saying death of the author or declaring death of the author, because that's not just reading and interpretation is not just reproducing something. You just restate what they might have thought or what they think in a very surface play, what they try to communicate in a very surface level manner. Is it our task? In that sense, it's not even interpretation. Who says that it's interpretation? No, it's not interpretation at all. You are just restating the arguments. For that, your creativity, your brain work is not needed. So, post-structuralism definitely promotes your creativity and freedom of interpretation. So, that is not just reproducing what the writer thought and expressed in the text. See, expressing something is very surface. Why expressing is highlighted there? You express something is, see, we talk about expressing and repression. Expression, repression, entirely different. Expression means what is already readily available at the surface level reading. That's not our concern at all. If you are a post-structuralist critic, if you are a deconstructive reader, express the things for interpreting that, to restate that our brain work is not needed. Why should we take the risk? Why should we take the task? Because it's already done by many people. That's not even needed. So, this inadequate notion of interpretation, Derrida calls a doubling commentary. This inadequate notion of interpretation. Till date, we have been holding this inadequate notion of interpretation. That means restating what the author has given, or restating, or just interpreting at an expressed level. Expressed level means very surface level reading. You never think about gust and its etymology. Etymology means you have to be in search of the depths, not at the expressed plane. You cannot stay at the expressed level of the meaning or the text and say that I have deconstructed the text. No, that possibility is not there. If you have to deconstruct, you have to be in search of the etymologies, in search of the different meanings, sometimes not even etymology. Sometimes an entirely different dictionary meaning will do. I will get you an example. What is the meaning of dropout? What is the meaning of dropout? Dropout. Should I write it here? Dropout. Let me type it here. Dropout. Messages. Let me just write it as dropout as a term. What is the idea? Surface level idea. We all know dropout. Any one of you, please? Tell me. Dropout, we always say like, you stop education or stop a course in between and you go out of the system. That's what you mean by, in between you stop something. Dropout as a surface level meaning. Dropout. See, it's a single term, dropout. But the same word, you please go and search in a dictionary so that you can see a wonderful another positive, if you want, positive. It's if you talk about a cause and a person dropping that, it's not that positive a thing, and you take that as a negative event if you drop something. But you get in the same, for the same word in the dictionary, you can see dropout with another meaning, that is a person who thinks in a different way. Person who thinks in a different way. Okay, and I will tell you how the text, the autobiographical text by the person, the master brain behind Apple the company, you know how none of the other giants could beat that technology till date, you know, and how he talks about himself in his text as a school dropout, of school. He was not studious. And just think about the text. The text is more than a dictionary. I will show you the picture of the text once I am back to home. The whole text and the meaning will change. That is a person who thinks and acts differently. He is definitely. What if we do not know this second meaning of this particular word? The whole text we read or we look at the character, the person as a school dropout, a person who is not worthy, who is not even capable of studying. But is in the second other meaning more matching? Isn't that more worthy? If you think about this person and the success he achieved in his life, isn't the second reading more worthy and more fit for the person's life? And the text, even the text, the entire reading of the text changes. Hope you get the idea. Is that clear for you? Is that clear for you?